لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك. إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Welcome to our fourth meeting of Labbayk 2021. This year, our second year. We're starting shortly. Let's live with Labbayk for a few minutes, for a couple of minutes more, as more friends are joining us.
لبيك
ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Inshallah, we begin. Welcome everybody, old friends, new friends, always friends. Labbayk Allahumma labbayk. Here we come, we answer the call to God. May I have a volunteer to read Al-Fatiha, please? Dr. Sarah El-Alam, can you read us Al-Fatiha?
Inshallah. With a small human in the background that might be disturbing. Maybe Ziba, or would you prefer? Maha, I don't think it's a good idea to use them.
Okay. Brother Faraz, could you read us Al-Fatiha, please?
Yes, sure. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayri al-maghdubi alayhim. Wala ad-dallin. Ameen.
Ameen. Ameen. So we begin with Fatiha, an opening. Let's take a moment to renew our intentions so that we're surrounded by angels as we dedicate this as an act of worship and hope to be open to find value and benefit like the Prophet, peace be upon him, taught us to take what's beneficial and leave what's not. Let's just take a moment to renew our intentions. All right. So when we say Labbayk Allahumma Labbayk, here we come, here we answer. And it's actually in the singular. So sometimes it's in the Labbayk Allahumma Labbayk. It's both in the singular and the plural. But what do we mean? How do we answer? Or what do we mean by answering God? And which God? So I want to remind myself and remind you that we're talking about the God that created everything in heavens and earth and oceans and air and anything that ever existed. We are answering the call and talking back and talking and communicating with our creator, the same creator that creates everyone else, everything, and what is yet to come. We're talking to God, the maker of our wishes, of your wishes, the maker of your ambitions, the maker of the love and happiness and wealth and health that we all desire. We are talking to a God that is very intimate and that is all hearing and all seeing and all knowing of what the smallest cell in our bodies might be craving. Today, we begin with, we have two presentations, and we begin with Professor Faraz Al-Sheikh, our good friend, and Professor Faraz. Faraz teaches religious ethics in the Religious Studies Department at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. He has a master's in Arabic and Islamic studies and a PhD in religious studies from Indiana University in Bloomington. He was born in Saudi Arabia, grew up in Pakistan, and came to the US as a graduate student in 2003. He's an avid navel gazer, daydreamer, all talk, no work, procrastinator. Hence, this bio is a Thank you for us. We needed the comic relief. He appreciates honest and meaningful conversations, is committed to finding his maker's message to him in the Quran, and is a genuinely strange, temperamental, and scatterbrained who manages to always clutter his life so that he frequently loses all sense and has to recover it again and again. he asks lots of questions. This is one of this is one of the most entertaining and honest and relatable brief bio I have seen in a long time. Faraz, thank you. For some weird reason, I relate. So let's welcome Professor Faraz Sheikh. And I want to welcome everybody who just joined us to the 4th day of Labbayk and our 2nd year of Labbayk. You're muted, Brother Faraz.
So, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Hello, everyone. I just want to start with the chat window. I see a message. I'm guessing it's Enabah, who says, can we please make a group dua for Sister Summer's young boy? He's in surgery. So if we could, I guess, if somebody wants to make a loud dua, that's up to you. I'm just going to silently make a prayer in my heart for the young boy who's in surgery.
Okay, let's make a silent dua for Uwais Summer's son. Thank you, Sister Enabah, for requesting this dua. May Allah heal all our sick loved ones and everybody who's suffering and everybody who's in need.
Ameen. Ameen. So salams, everyone, again. I have roughly 7 minutes. And so I guess I still want to spend at least half a minute acknowledging that this is very difficult. It is very difficult to be profound without, feeling presumptuous in the company of friends. And there's a lot of friends here who know me, and and I'm going to talk about being close to God, and it's just difficult to be dense and profound. And as Maha's email had, invitation had suggested that we want to be profound and talk about difficult questions, and it's just exceedingly difficult to do in a company of friends. And I'm, it's 1 a.m. and I'm just, kind of goofy anyway. So
go for it, for us. You can do it.
No, yeah. So I'm going to try to be profound and serious, and in 6 minutes try to share something with you of my personal journey, like a difficult question. And when I was invited, I was thinking, I always think back to my life and different things pop up and different dots pop up. So I can tell this story of profound moments of my life in many different ways. There are many different things. So I'm just going to pick one, I guess, theme that when I look back at my life when I was young, what made what I went through. And I think, in summary, without sharing too many details, looking back, of course, now I can say that I found myself with a heart full of desires, full of desire. I was just, wanting things, wanting good things, I wasn't afraid to go after, things that I think would make me happy. And my childhood, my household environment was conducive. There was no restrictions. Whatever you wanted to do, you did. And so I found myself with a heart full of desire. And then I found my heart broken because on account of this desire, I was, to be honest, I fell in love multiple times, but I fell in love and it felt like, you really just loved someone and life would not go on without, and then you could do nothing to change reality, which was not how you wished it to be. And I think this was the beginning of my, I guess, becoming an adult, where I realized that things that I wish them, no matter how badly I wish them to be a certain way, something will just not be that way. And I felt that I was a victim of reality. Reality did not budge in the face of my wishes. I could not wish my wishes into reality. Reality was what it was, and sometimes it was, conducive, sometimes it was not. And when it was not, it was, in my case, very harshly not in my favor. And I felt in deep pain and unbearable and not able to find relief. And I feel I had this moment without really having any real sense of God or religion in my life. I just had this feeling that there's somebody. If somebody's doing this, I felt, I was confronted with this question of, are you going to let this be the last word? Is reality cruel and you are a victim of reality, and this is the last word? This is the most profound, final word, and everything else is, you can try to feel better, go to a psychologist, you can try to be with friends, try to make do, try to be functional, try to have fun. But ultimately, this reality is cruel. And one of its cruelties in my face were, what you love, you cannot have. And then there were other many cruelties, death, illness, and so on. And I feel I spent about 4 to 5 years in this very intense struggle of this, which were my college years. And that's why my GPA is nothing, to write home about, because I was really just fighting, the life outwardly was great. I was part of a middle upper class family in Pakistan, a great college, great friends, etc. Life was great on the outside, but the inside was just completely broken and turmoil. And in these 5 years, a mini opening, or what I felt, what I was going through, I was either going to give up and say, I'm a victim and this is, reality is cruel, or I'm going to say, maybe I am the one who is doing something to cause this pain to myself. Maybe I am putting myself in this situation. Is it me? Am I doing something? And I don't know why. And now I can only say that whoever, my maker's grace and mercy to me, that he made me not choose despair. And he made me at least give me enough courage or perseverance to say, it is painful, things don't make sense, but things can make sense. Maybe there is something, maybe there is an answer to why things are the way they are. And for some reason, I made a pact, I looked up to the sky and said, whoever you are, I accept that I may be the one who's doing wrong. Then you tell me the meaning of tell me the right answer. Then tell me what am I doing wrong and what the right is. And if you convince me, if you can convince me, I'll accept it. So I will take responsibility. I will say, okay, I am the one who was, not seeing things right. I'm ready. I'm willing to look for it. So show me. And during this time, I decided on things, sort of like throwing up the ball to this unknown, unfamiliar being, whoever it is that you are, somebody that you're doing this, show me. And after that point, I kind of just went along with whatever was happening as a way of, he's going to show me, he's doing this. And then one thing led to another, to another, to another. And then I finally felt that I could actually look for his answer to me in the Quran. which was not the case when I was reading the Quran previously, but after a series of experiences which we don't have time to talk about, but those who know here already know. But at least I developed a basis for feeling some level of confidence that I can actually expect his answer, his message to me about the meaning of my life in the Quran. And so I've been just trying to do that. And so I guess to summarize what I just said, and my time is up, is that my profound question, I guess, was that is this reality that in which I find myself with a desiring heart and objects that the heart desire, I found myself in the middle, squeezed in the middle, not by choice, but just by, I don't know, by chance or by somebody's doing, that I have a heart that desires, and there's things that it desires. And sometimes those are immensely painful when you don't get what you desire. And I had the choice of saying, yeah, and this is the world. And so I'm just going to write some poems. I think I wrote 2 poems and then I gave up. I said, no, I'm not going to be this broken-hearted poet writing terrible poetry and then dying by suicide or something. I just, I had read several biographies of famous people and philosophers and poets who, I said, no, I just don't want that end. I just don't think it should come to that. So I wanted something else. There should be something better than that. So anyway, and so I took some responsibility, and I didn't have a basis to take that responsibility. It was very hard because I didn't really have a basis to have any hope or trust, but I just kind of, then so it was very hard trying to, like, I had to really almost, hanging by a thread sort of thing, but saying that I will accept, I will, okay, I accept, maybe I did something wrong, maybe I don't understand what things are. I'm willing to, hear, I'm willing to consider, and if it is meaningful, if it convinces me, then I will say yes, but show me. So that was, I think, my moment of question that confronted me, and I chose, whoever, my God made me choose this path of seeking an answer from him. And thank God for that. Here I am, I'm still sort of seeking, but at least I'm not dead. And I haven't written bad poetry, so, it's, but that's all I have time for, just very quickly. So, I mean, we can have more conversation on this, but thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Faraz, for sharing with us the journey that led you to ask the question, the pivotal question of show me, or maybe I'm doing something wrong. I mean, show me you're addressing God, and that maybe you're doing something wrong, and that in order to take a different path, you needed guidance. So let's open, please feel free to unmute yourself, turn your cameras on, and let's address Professor Faraz, our questions and comments. The last point you made, Faraz, about being heartbroken and writing bad poetry reminded me of yesterday's, of course, in addition to reminding me of many other personal journeys, it also reminded me of yesterday's discussion here at Labbayk. And Faraz joins us from overseas, so he might not have heard. We had a long discussion last night about romantic poetry, romantic love, not poetry, but the why doesn't so-and-so individual not love me? And we had a long discussion about that. So it's interesting that you are relating a personal moment of falling in love, feeling desires and wishes, and feeling heartbroken. And that despite the appearance of success and provision that your environment, your outer environment provided you. You felt broken in the inside. So how do we relate this to yesterday's discussion? Don't be shy, folks.
While everyone is still thinking, I just wanted to emphasize the last point that Faraz made, which was to choose or to be willing to accept the situation. And even though it was hard, that was a point where we choose humility. So Faraz there choose to be humble and to say, maybe I am doing something wrong, so I need help. And that's the moment of surrender. That's what surrender is about. To be open to accept the reality, to be willing to at least question in the beginning, because we're not still yet aware of what this reality is, but to be open to explore that what I perceive, this is the first step to go out of ego-based life, is to start questioning our perception. Because before that, we take it for granted, and everyone starts there. We take it for granted that how I experience life is the reality. And we have no clue that I could be perceiving things in a way that could be making my life harder, that the pain is not only because something is happening, but also how I am receiving it. And that moment is a moment of humility, a moment of being open to question what is, to be willing to choose another alternative, and to ask for help, for guidance. That is surrender.
Faraz, did it strike you at the time you made this choice that you were, choice not to go with despair and to seek guidance?
Later, usually it's afterwards, when we start gaining a perspective, we have something to compare with. But when we are in that darkness, we never seen the light, we don't know what we're talking about. We just find ourselves there, and then we find ourselves propelled, or we have an inclination, and we may choose to follow the inclination, or we may not.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Because that's why I'm asking for us, because maybe at the moment it might not have like it's surrender. Yes.
Yeah. At the moment, honestly, I went through many different feelings. Sometimes I felt maybe I'm just too weak. Maybe if I was really brave and courageous, I would not feel this way, and I would actually embrace a life of drugs and pain and misery. But another side of me said, well, but maybe it's not meant to be this hard. Maybe like, why should life be something of like a hardship to be born until I die? Like, why should I conclude that this is it? So I went through but there wasn't any sense of this is a moment of surrender like that. That's not how I felt at the time that I'm surrendering. It was like I'm almost hanging on to life because the alternative is complete despair. It was so dark, it was so painful that I just couldn't, bear it. And sometimes I thought maybe I'm weak, I don't bear it. And other times I thought, but that's how I find myself. So maybe I'm not meant to just be miserable. Maybe I am actually not meant to suffer, but I am making myself suffer. And so the more natural state is to not suffer. So maybe there's something that, I need to find, which would give me, basically, convince me that, yeah, this is actually, there's a good reason why I should feel this way and not, not feel that way. I do, looking back, and say that just opening up to this other, you, like addressing someone like God, saying, you, whoever has done this, you are doing this, just made it less lonely and less sort of self, contained. It kind of like I started this, saying conversation, saying, you are doing this, so now you're doing this, and now you're doing this. So small, like petty things that were happening. I lost a camera with some pictures, and I really wanted, so can you help me find it? And I find the camera under a pile of snow. And
That's a huge, it seems like a small shift, but it's a small shift. It's like if you have on a scale 2 mountains, if you put a walnut on one, Imam Nursi says, on one side, there is going to be a huge motion going on there. That small shift is actually, it's a huge difference from being in our self-alienated way of being in our little bubble to there is something out there, and not anything. It's not like my friend or something. Someone who has power. We're asking him for things that are well beyond our power. This is a huge shift, actually. We only realize it later.
Faraz, could you please give us a quick summary for those who just joined us of what you said?
Well, the quick summary is that, oh man, I'm so terrible at this summarizing. The summary is that I went through a time where I found myself, my heart wanting and desiring things, and then not getting those things that I desire and want, and then feeling heartbroken, and things sort of piling up one on top of the other. So all of reality seeming like it is against me, and I'm basically going to be bearing this burden of living until I die. And so I found myself with this option of either, well, not really an option. I mean, the option was despair, but it was so painful. The more I thought about it, it was so dark and painful that I would just, at the other side of me, I didn't want fake hope, but I was just fighting to say, but I don't feel comfortable in this darkness. There must be something, but I don't know what it is. So I struggled, but in the end, thanks to my God, he made me choose some hope that there is maybe a meaning. And I do remember kind of saying, maybe I'm the one who's making a mistake, and maybe I'm choosing to not, I'm making wrong choices. I'm not seeing the meaning of things. I don't know what I'm doing. So show me. So I turned to whatever little concept of God I had, like whoever has power, power was really the main thing, that you can do otherwise, but you're doing this. And that made it even more, ridiculous why he's doing this, because he can easily do otherwise. He has so much power. Why is he putting me through this? So it was all the more intriguing and, devastating. But I chose, for some reason, I don't know why, I guess just God's mercy, to not just stay with despair, but say, maybe show me the meaning of my pain and of this reality that I'm experiencing is quite terrible and cruel. And it set me off and say, I'm going to go in search, make me meet people, make me, show me, and show me what they say you are, talking in the Quran. But when I open it, I don't quite hear what is it here for me. And so I didn't have that sense of how can I actually, is this a message for me really? Like, what does it mean? And so eventually I think I found people with whom I learned sort of, and also to have the confidence to say, yeah, this is actually, there should be, my maker should speak to me about my life, the meaning of my life. And he is speaking here in this Quran, that I can find his message for me here. And so I've been on that sort of journey as I'm right now. And it's a very bumpy ride for me, but I'm still on it.
Thank you, Faraz. I want to remind everybody of what you said, that it wasn't fake hope that you were seeking. And thank you for saying this, because some of us think this, and and we hear these questions sometimes, but some people feel embarrassed and shy to say, but maybe this is fake hope, or maybe this is made up wishful thinking. And I mean, these are important questions that come to one's mind, and when we stay with them and plow through them, perhaps we find that it isn't fake hope and it isn't wishful thinking.
Actually, as far as at least what I understood from what Faraz shared at the beginning, he said once or twice that he found actually in himself that first, why should it be, or why did it have to be hard? Why life? So why should I accept this and just like do with it? And so because he found the hope in him, within himself, and what, so he, the true seed that we are still unaware in the beginning is that we find the desire for hope, or the hope itself in us, the desire for something better, easier, something we're longing for. And he found himself pursuing that instead of saying, okay, resignated himself to this is how life is. It is supposed to be hard and we just have to put up with it. So that itself is, from the beginning, it's not a fake hope, because we find it there. We have a desire, a hope for ease, for beauty, for things going on smoother.
Exactly. Well, I found around me people, mostly my friends were leftists, and mostly they would speak as if, cruel, hopelessness and despair and pain you're feeling, that's real, but your desire for something good and your hopefulness, that's somehow fake. And I never bought into that. A lot of people did kind of buy into that and said, they thought, yeah, it's cool to be critical, it's cool to be, like, yeah, it's all, life is so,
reject everything.
Yeah, and I was deep down there, with all those people, but I somehow was not, I didn't fully buy it that is the final word, but there is something in me that doesn't like suffering. Why am I not comfortable with suffering? If that, so I didn't choose that also. So it's equally, it's equally possible for me to choose either. And sometimes I guess it's tempting to choose, despair, because I don't know, for all kinds of reasons, seems like the more courageous, authentic thing to do. And maybe so I don't know, like I said, it took me 5 years, I didn't always choose hope. I did everything to be a victim of reality, and it just didn't go well, and it was going to either end, very badly, or I had to do something different. And I say, there might be something. Why don't I actually first try and look? And so, and people made fun of me. They said, there is no answers for us. Like, you want answer? Like, what the hell? Truth? Like, there is no truth. What are you talking about? Get a job, get married, have kids. Like, life is make memories. I don't know, pass the traditions on to your children. Like, that's what life is about. I mean, everyone had their own definition of life around me. And I was like, but why should I take this person's idea of life? Like, what do they know? So I had this, some sense in me that, no, there must be something. I don't want to take somebody's answer and say, yeah, life is like this, and they would,
So actually, 2 points that are very important here in Faraz's discussion is being in touch with ourselves when we are not in touch with ourselves, we just, whatever comes from outside, we're buying into it and we're not really weighing it inside. And the second, together with that, which is very important, taking the responsibility. Because you said, maybe it's something in me, maybe I'm making the wrong choice. That's a huge step forward. And that's what blocks us a lot of the time when we are not willing or open, or we have not even entertained the possibility. But once we stumble on it, like I take that responsibility and things happen once, twice, and then we can one day sit and say, wherever I took responsibility, it was much better. So I now can make the choice to always take the responsibility and remind myself. That's a huge step.
Dr. Yamina, what did you mean by never entertain the possibility of what?
Possibility that I could be making the wrong choices or seeing things in a wrong way or misperceiving things, or just because I think it's this way doesn't mean this is it, full stop, nothing else. At least the possibility of there is something else beyond my perception, beyond my understanding. Right. That's huge. You're open now to the possibilities are endless. And the biggest possibility is you get to ask help from the all-powerful one. It's a huge step from the limited to the unlimited.
And I want to get back to the very important point about being influenced by leftist or any influence that suggests it's more genuine, it's more authentic, it's more genuine to be cynical and to not accept belief in God. It reminds me of the opium of the masses. Who wants to be dragged out? Who wants to be a pawn? You know, of course. So this is a huge topic that I don't know if we're gonna. I mean, this is a very important topic because in previous years the left had enormous influence on all intellectuals outside, even in the US, but I'm saying especially outside of the US, in Europe and the world. But now it is not the left. Now it is not the left. Now it is something maybe as dangerous because it is materialism to the degree, to an unprecedented degree that it is. That I might venture, I didn't think about it, so I don't know whether I should say it's worse or not. You know, the leftist influence of previous years was political, was ideological, and it permeated all forms of art and literature and everything, and even social institutions. But now it is not, as you know, the danger is that currently, it's not about the left or the right. Currently, there is a universalizing, global, materialistic approach that isn't presenting itself as ideological. So people aren't, you know, armed intellectually to look at it, and especially younger people absorb it as though it's the way to be. It's the stat, you know, it is how things are. So it is just as dangerous, but I mean, or maybe more dangerous, but in that sort of delusion, it is also presenting that believing in God might be another opium, or might be a fake hope like Faraz said, or might be, you know, an escape from reality, which is of course not true. Sarah, you had something to say?
I was just going to say that this is a very relevant, serious, heartfelt topic because heartbreak is continuous, at least in my experience, and it seems like the order, right? That we will continuously feel this, what seems to be, at least from my experience at this moment, this continuous taste of heartbreak, and sometimes it just feels back to back with this constant transience, these constant expectations, or constant, whatever it is, it just seems like it is back to back to back. Even like in recovery mode, it's a lot. It seems, so I can really relate even in this here and now, that it can feel like this incredible pain from many different angles. And so what I'm extremely moved by is how amazingly connected and tied today is to yesterday, when Faraz probably didn't necessarily plan for today to be so connected to yesterday. Because I took notes on yesterday that the most important aspect is to be willing, Dr. Yamina said, to ask, what's the wisdom in this? Where is the meaning in this? And Faraz is now taking that, linking that to heartbreak, that maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I'm the one doing something, and I'm made to feel the suffering. So with Enabah and Dr. Yamina and Samina sharing yesterday, I am feeling this very gentle guidance that is being built upon that. And so I actually did take that yesterday and decide to be willing to ask this very bold and very courageous question when you're in the midst of pain, is like, okay, I'm willing to ask what the meaning is in this. And that's a huge step, because when you're in the midst of pain and it feels so painful, to be willing to say, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe, okay, I'm willing to ask. I'm willing. And I like the word willing because I don't really want to know what the like, I don't want to have to think about the meaning in this. But I'm willing to ask a question of, I'm willing. And for me, that step of I'm willing, I was willing to do it. And it felt like such a relief. And I didn't know why. I didn't know why it felt like a relief, but now with Dr. Yamina sharing, there's an opening that happens there. And when you're not as closed in your circle and bubble of pain, and you're willing to see that, yes, this pain is made. And yes, I'm willing to sit with this pain, like Enabah was saying yesterday. I'm willing to be very courageous and sit with this pain and say, I'm willing to ask what the meaning could be. And it's such a bold and courageous, and so I just wanted to just emphasize that.
Thank you, Sarah, for reminding us of the boldness and the courage and the braveness in asking this question, or any question that arises from a moment of difficulty. And I reiterate that in questions, there is energy, there is movement. So the relief that Sarah is talking about comes from, and the courage that Enabah is referring to, and Dr. Yamina's point about surrender, because there is energy and movement in the question. When we are under the impression that we've already reached a conclusion, and Faraz reminded us that he did not want to settle with the conclusion that things are desperate and that the direction is the giving up. But when we're willing to question this erroneous, what might be by default conclusion, there is energy and there is movement to move us forward, and there is an opening. Thank you, Faraz, for taking us into this profound discussion. We hope to have more. We're scratching the surface, and we hope to have more and more, inshallah.
Huda has a question. Her hand is raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead, Huda.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, I joined in a little bit late, but since Sarah said this was a continuation actually from yesterday, talking about love and so on. all these questions that Faraz talked about, that maybe that he's doing a mistake or maybe doing something wrong, and going to the source for help. Now, being aware of needs, is a wonderful thing. Through the taking the class, compassionate communication, we're learning I feel because I need. So now I have these feelings and I know I'm feeling them because I need. So the needs are being identified. At least in my situation, I can identify my needs. And then taking the teachings that we learned through Dr. Yamina, then we know that points to the names of the divine, and I can identify, inshallah, the names of the divine. Now, the next question is that I've been thinking about this since yesterday. How do I channel these feelings? Now I know the needs. How do I channel these feelings into something productive that will help me better myself in my relationship with others and my relationship with my children? So that's what I'm sitting with right now. Okay, these feelings, ya Allah, are painful. They're painful. Okay. And these feelings make me sit down and cry. But I don't want to lose hope, and I don't want to fall into the victim mentality, So how do I now channel these feelings and take them and put them into something, apply it to my life where I can actually use that quote unquote pain that comes from these feelings to uplift myself, to better myself, and even to have a positive impact on my children and the people that I care for.
As while you are thinking of the answer, what first came to my mind or heart or whatever I found in myself in response was immediately when Huda shared, I feel pain, and this points to a need. But there was something else that was in the discussion, even though maybe it was not emphasized, but it was there, which was, I find the feelings, I find the pain in myself. So instead of I am feeling pain, it becomes I am made to feel pain. The whole thing was, as I understood it from what Faraz said in the beginning, maybe, I'm not sure if you were not there, Huda, was in the beginning when I'm going to say I, because this is my understanding, but I think Faraz was sharing that as well. So I find myself feeling painful, feeling miserable, feeling down. And because of the meaninglessness, as far as I'm concerned, of this feelings, this pain, it feels like life is cruel, and that cruelty makes the situation, that meaninglessness makes it even worse. But the second, the step, the breakthrough was, although it looked like a small shift, but it was a huge thing, it was actually a breakthrough when Faraz said, maybe I'm doing something wrong, and asking whoever, you put me in this situation, you're putting me in these conditions, so I'm feeling like this. How come you are not, why are you creating it this way and not in another way? So he's already assuming that this being is in control, has power, and therefore I find myself, I am made to feel the pain. What shall I do with it? Now the whole attitude changes. It's not only about finding the needs, because look, if I say, now I I'm analyzing it myself. If I say I feel pain, there is a need underneath. From there, there is no way I can go to the divine, to the beautiful names of God, to God or to his names or to anything. I would be like Maha always says, and she was saying yesterday, I think, I am shortcutting, I am plastering something, an answer that I know by heart, and saying, oh, yes, the needs names of God. Yes, but I have not, because I have not experienced it myself, it does not bring me any relief. So we need to look at the situation in, I am watching the pain in me. Pain is not there all the time. It comes and goes. Emotions, so I stop identifying with that emotion. The emotion becomes, I am like a host to that emotion. It's a guest, it's a messenger. And of course, when we are unaware, we don't welcome that messenger because you don't feel good. But now that it's not really me, I am made, what's going on here? So now the whole attitude changes. And now I can say, please help me. Please help me. I found this and it doesn't feel good. And now I am open to maybe receive the wisdom in this. It could be that I am misperceiving, or it could be that truly there is something that is painful, and that pain is going to take me somewhere. For instance, at least it's going to, with the pain comes the desire for comfort and no pain, at least. So that's a huge difference. I feel pain and I find pain in me.
And to just, I guess, thank you, Dr. Yamina, thank you, Huda, for your question. What I would just add is, you know, this is a recurring mistake that I make, or what I came to see as my mistake. I didn't realize. I mean, I was just thinking maybe I'm doing something wrong, right? I mean, I don't know what it was, and I had to be convinced about it. And to the extent that I am now convinced about something, it is that it's my mistake to think that the qualities that with which goodness comes about, either in me or in the world, are the qualities of my character or my personality or my actions. This is what I came to see as my mistake, my sort of naturalism, my natural attribution of, you know, the actions that come through me into the world, and their sort of moral qualities, their goodness, attributing them to myself as an agent and thinking I am doing this and I can do this better, is actually, I found to be the root of, you know, what my mistake was. And that I had to always, I live in a causal world, so that's why I found truth in negation and then affirmation. In other words, there is no affirmation without negation, because when I first do something, it feels like I've done it. And so the only way for me to escape that cruel and oppressive predicament where I'm the one who's doing it, and so it's on me, to that, no, I'm not the one who's doing it, actually. I did it, but I can do it in his name. That's why, to me, the fundamental revelation that every single time is still a revelation, which encapsulates the entirety of revelation for me in my world, is Bismillah. This Bismillah is both to me a commentary on what I do wrong. I do bi-ismi, something else, and it was the solution. That that the Quran presents to me, and I find quite compelling. So it is not me, for example, who's going to be nice to my child or more nice to my child now that they know that my God is nice. But once I actually know that all nicety is from God, then this niceness does its work. It does its work. And I am asked to, to do it in a way that doesn't burden me, that helps me celebrate it and actually recognize that my Lord is, merciful. And that's what I find my reason telling me, that it shouldn't be burdensome. That's what I find Revelation telling me, that whatever you do, it shouldn't be a burden to you. And that's, so I'm only as nice to other people as much as my Lord gives me that niceness to be. The more I feel I recognize that it's about me recognizing my Lord, it just so happens that I end up actually being more nice, because it's not about me calculating how nice I was to someone, how nice were they in return to me, how it actually just becomes more,
it flows.
It flows, and you kind of, whatever I see, insofar as I'm able to negate it as, as a source of its own, and therefore treat it as a messenger, it does its work, and it does its work quite adequately, I feel. It's when I actually interfere and try to increase or decrease as if by my own will to, then I'm again sort of in that troubled waters where I am trying to act in my name. We are really sort of done upon. We don't do anything. We're done upon. Things, and I find the Quranic description of the soul as a command of God to be quite revolutionary sort of for me in terms of thinking about who I am. It's really a command at work. I just need to, I'm the witness of this command at work, and without burdening myself. And of course, when I fail, there is istighfar and forgiveness. So God is forgiving, as a forgiving God makes sense as well. But anyways, I don't know if that speaks to what you were asking, but I'm sorry if I overspoke.
That's we've been learning, and that's the goal, actually. That's what ibadah, the gist of worship, is to act in the name of God, and feeling is also to be experienced Bismillah in the name of God. But before that, so it feels like I am feeling, so there I'm totally close to even the possibility of something, another agent going, another source of the feeling. Then I pause and find myself, I find the feeling in me. If it were me feeling, I would have a switch on and off. I would feel only things that I like. Why would I bother with, painful feelings? So they are, yes, they flow through me. I find them. When I have this honesty, this is basic integrity, then I will start the journey of receiving them in the name of whoever sent them, Bismillah, and using them, acting upon them, not in my name, but in the name. So that's a whole journey. And we've been actually talking about this topic, all for a long time. It's not only actions out there or things we do, but it's everything. And that's the process of purification, and that's the process of living with La ilaha illallah. The Shahada is not something we just say. It's something that looks very easy, yet sometimes it can be, it's an imtihan. It's sometimes we find ourselves going in that illusion of I am acting, but we are neither creators nor co-creators. We are only receivers.
And Sister
Well,
Zahra,
what about, sorry.
Go ahead.
What about thoughts then? I mean, okay, now I understand feelings and I need to sit with the feelings.
Actually, it's a good question.
But what about thoughts?
Exactly.
I mean, how do you know?
Huda, actually, this is a good question, because mostly if I'm feeling in a certain way, it's because I believe things are going on in a certain way. So under every feeling, there must be a belief. A belief is a thought that I repeated so many times without questioning, that I take it for granted that it is true. So what we do in our retreats and in most of is to question, is it true? Or be open to the possibility, like Faraz said at the beginning, maybe I'm thinking something wrong. The choice is not only action out there, it could be a thought. And actually, at the beginning of action, before an action, there is a feeling. We feel something, we want to do something, at least a want. And before that, there is a thought. And thoughts come to us and we receive them, and we need to be mindful of our thoughts. Otherwise, we'll have plenty of junk thoughts there. And if we believe everything, I can have a thought, it can come through my mind. I don't have to hang on to it and believe it. And if it bothers me and it seems to be true, then I have to sit and question it.
And I would just quickly add to that, thought, very good. Yeah, it's a perfect question, actually. So to me, the most basic component of thought is definitions, conceptual definitions. And these are always there. All thought, everything we think about, we assume certain meanings of certain concepts.
You mean assumptions that we
assumptions? Yeah, concepts have meanings.
We never questioned.
And we have definitions. And so for me, the most relevant reading of Revelation is to read Revelation as giving me definitions, conceptual definitions of reality, of things, of realities. I already have alternative definitions, or I have already definitions of the Revelation's claims should be taken, whatever else they may be, as alternative definitions, and I should take them on and then look at reality as Revelation describes reality, and then I can choose, okay, which one is more suitable for a creature like me, for a soul or a mind or a heart like me. Are my definitions and therefore my concepts and thoughts better, or is what the thoughts that Revelation, and by thoughts I mean conceptual definitions of reality, is this vocabulary of life, if you allow me to use some jargon, is my vocabulary of life better, or is the vocabulary of life or vocabulary of reality that the Maker gives me more suitable for a creature like me and my well-being? So I think that if I approach Revelation that way, that to me has been the most important question. Whose definition of reality will I live by? What thoughts will I have in your words?
Unless you approach Revelation this way, it's not going to. We're not going to benefit from it. It's not going to transform us. It will remain, at the best, if we study, at the best, it will remain as information. Yeah, so it's very important.
That's a very good point. Whose definition and whose vocabulary? But this question can be unpacked further, inshallah, in more discussions. Sister Huda, thank you for your question. Let me just read quickly Sister Zahra's comment in the chat. Aha moment. When I'm made to feel burdened, it's a message that I'm taking possession of what is God's. In other words, I'm taking on a burden that doesn't belong to me. So on that note,
not only that, it's not only that I'm taking the burden, but I'm also at the same time, I am stealing. What Faraz was saying, for instance, I am being nice to people and saying I am a nice person, you see, like I'm doing good things. I found everything in me and now I'm appropriating, ascribing things that I found in me and say they are mine, like a small child, you know, the child is born with nothing. By the time they are 2 or 3, everything in the house, half of it becomes theirs. We also, like as an adult, okay, now it's time to stop saying it's mine and recognize that it's not. It's an amana, it's a trust. Yes, it is given. It is in my, I'm using it now, but it's an amana, it's a trust, it's not mine.
We will have to come back to this point and explore further, inshallah. Thank you, Brother Faraz. Now, let's welcome Sister Lynn Fiddler. My friend Lynn is a musician, an active community member in Chicago. She studied at Indiana University, and I met her at different rallies and events here in Bloomington. Recent projects, some of her recent projects include helping to start a sanctuary house for asylum seekers called Casa El Fatiha, and participating in prison solidarity work for incarcerated people across the country. Last year at Labbayk, Sister Lynn shared with us a very moving letter that she had received from an incarcerated brother, where he had drawn an image, and we discussed as she was discussing the story of Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, and the notion of sacrifice, and it was a very moving presentation that I still remember. Welcome, Sister Lynn.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you again for inviting me back. I'm always so honored and so pleased to share this space with you, with all of you. I have something somewhat different to share this year, inshallah. It's just a moment that happened to me recently of really having to confront the idol of my own ego. And the what sort of brought me to my knees was an encounter with a spider. So I'm here to tell my tale of this encounter with a spider, just to set the stage a little bit of my own ego for you, to clue you in a little bit. I think you've probably gotten the sense that you know, I try to be very involved in, you know, different community projects, and especially in a lot of the work that I participate in around prisons. It's definitely from the perspective of questioning the justice of prisons and policing in this country. And I think what I really question, I can sort of distill it to 2 things: questioning the justice of disposing of people and disappearing people, and questioning the justice of the impulse to be cruel as punishment. Not necessarily, you know, I believe in consequences. I believe in reparations and sometimes in retribution. I think sometimes, you know, consequences are necessary, but there's a step beyond. That is the desire to inflict pain and inflict suffering as a form of punishment. And those are the 2 central things that I question about policing and prisons in the United States is the disappearing and disposing of people, and cruelty and purposeful infliction of cruelty as punishment. And I try to boil it down to those 2 things because I feel that I can speak on those 2 central truths, both from maybe put my more political hat on, my more like abolitionist hat on, and I feel like I can also speak to those things just as a Muslim, and from, you know, Islamic ethics and things like that. So that's why I like to try to boil it down to those 2 things. because I feel like I can, that there's very much at the intersection of those two parts of my life. And it's something that I very much try to practice in my own day-to-day life, in my own relationships, of try to not dispose of people and try to not inflict pain just because I am hurt. And that's where my ego comes in, of having a self-image of someone who moves beyond those things, who no longer has use of those impulses, who manages to conduct my personal relationships in a way that exemplifies that in some sense. That's where my ego comes in. That's where I believe that I am that person subconsciously, perhaps. There may be days where I have some more humility than others, or days where I recognize my struggles with that. But in general, that's a deeply held, like I really want to believe that that's who I am. And that is a little bit of the stage for my ego. Okay, so in walks the spider. So recently I was bitten by a spider during the night. In a very soft place, in a place where I would normally never invite a spider to bite, and they were very painful bites. They lasted a long time. They were honestly quite gnarly spider bites. And a few days later, I spotted the spider crawling on my ceiling. And this was not a cute, fuzzy, small spider. This was a large, scary spider, a spider that triggers that visceral response. But it was on my ceiling, and it was too far away for me to grab it. But it impounded the fear, of I'm sitting, I'm lying in bed waiting to fall asleep, knowing that spider is there, knowing how painful the bites were. So a few days later, the spider is crawling sideways across my wall, and it was within reach. And so I took a note card and a jar, and I trapped it. And then the funniest thing happened. I became paralyzed because I couldn't kill the spider, but I couldn't just take it outside and let it go. I hated that spider. I wanted that spider to suffer. I wanted to punish this spider for biting me and for causing me, some lost sleep, thinking about it, lurking over me in my bed. And I put the spider in this jar. I set it on the middle of my floor. And I'm not proud to say this. I just left it there for 2 days, paralyzed by this conflict in myself, that I couldn't just kill it, or at this point, even mercy kill it. And I couldn't bring myself to just let it go. And so here I was, thinking of myself as this person who would never, needlessly keep someone or something in a cage just to inflict cruelty, just because I felt pain. And yet here I was staring at this spider, and knowing that what I was doing with it, I was running out of time. Like the way that the spider would be killed in this jar in the middle of my room would be that it will run out of oxygen. I was in my paralysis around this. I was toying with suffocating this spider to death. For what? Because of my own pain, because of this impulse that came in to inflict some sort of suffering on this spider. And the thing is, I also immediately started to feel guilty about it, and immediately started to feel defensive about it. Again, because it was striking at this sense of self and this ego that I had. But the more guilty and defensive I felt about it, kind of in a spiral, the less I could mobilize myself to actually just make up my mind of what to do with this spider. And so this went on for 2 days. And I watched as initially, in the first day, the spider was pretty active. It kept running and running and running and running around all of the walls of the jar. And by day 2, it kind of curled up on itself and just sat. in the middle of the jar without moving. And I knew that this was sort of like the make or break day. Either the spider was probably going to die within the next few hours, or I do something about it. And I really just, it was a moment of bringing my ego to its knees, of saying this impulse goes so much deeper within us than I, had really given it credit for, in some sense. That despite all of the work that I have done to try to enact a better way, both in the world and in my personal relationships, it still can get to me. This can still be brought up in me, this impulse. And finally, what sort of moved me out of this sort of guilt, defensiveness, paralysis, just like spinning existential crisis, was remembering all of the parts of the Quran that talk about the day of judgment and the day of awakening, and the testifying that the Quran speaks to, the infant girl asking for what was she buried alive, that the hands and the feet and the mountains, like everything, every creature, every animating thing in this world will have a chance to testify and to be questioned. And I was just, there was a moment that I was walking and I just stopped myself in my tracks and thought, and just shivers went all up and down my body. This spider will have a chance to testify against me and ask, for what did I put it in a cage? For what did I inflict such suffering upon it? And after that moment, after just being completely stopped in my tracks with that shiver up and down my spine, I immediately ran up into my room. I got the jar. I couldn't look at it. I couldn't bring myself to look at the spider, but I just, I set it out on my porch and tipped over the jar and walked away. And immediately went back up into my room and started to ask for forgiveness, both from God and from the spider. So that was my recent existential crisis of the spider who brought my ego to its knees for the moment, for the time being. I'm sure there will be many other returns to that same cycle.
La ilaha illallah, subhanallah. Thank you, Sister Lynn, for sharing such a heart-touching moment and how you transformed it from a mere encounter with a spider bite, to what might appear to be just, a natural response, and then the conflict that arose within and how you resolved that.
It was a special feeling. It was a feeling that she is particularly sensitive to. So it reminded me of the journey of Ibrahim alayhi salam, where he started with smashing the idols out there. So that's going out and speaking for justice and helping the people. And then later he was asked to smash the idol inside, in your own heart. Give that love back, love for your son back to its maker. The son belongs to him. The love for the son belongs to him, the caring. Here also it feels like I am, and it relates to the previous discussion. It feels like I am, however much we remind ourselves that we are doing it in the name of God, from time to time there is a part of us that says, I am merciful, I am helping. Actually, I'm made to help. And when we witness and testify that we are made to help, we recognize that He is the merciful, or you are the merciful, you are the helper. If it's up to me, I can easily fall into that impulse. So alhamdulillah that You are the one who pull us back. So that's the smashing of the idol inside. Thank you. That was very meaningful. Alhamdulillah.
Shahrani family, Sister Enabah, go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Lynn. My name is Enabah. I shared on a day or so ago as well, and your story meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me personally. And in the chat, I wrote Shahada moment on a day of awakening. For me, this day of awakening is right here and now. When especially when I realized, this is what my sharing was about a few days ago, how after experiencing, gender-based violence earlier in my life, when that didn't heal, it turned into a distortion of my personal values, in which I actually began to see abuse of power as right, as might means right in the world. And I absorbed this so much that I kept it inside of myself as an idol. And I could see by certain choices that I've made in life how it was like the internal idol was actually like basically pointing me like a compass to certain external idols. And then when this collapsed and when this whole situation collapsed with like an external trigger that caused a lot of grief and pain, and I needed to search for the point of healing. I needed to search for healing or wither away. And then I found powerlessness inside of me, and realized that, that powerlessness that was disconnected from a power that is good, that has all the other beautiful names with it as well. When it was out there by itself, powerless, no wonder that idol developed inside of me, because it seemed like that was going to be the solution to heal the pain. And so, my day of awakening is both smashing this external idol of worldly power. And in my sharing, I said, it was a lot to do with seeing men as superior to women, and even the idea of superiority versus inferiority. And then what was inside of me as well, of feeling that, of having just a distorted value in power in general, as if that's what I want, when what I really want is safety. And what that is, the need that is inside of me is to feel safe and secure, and to want to serve the world, but that is also given to me, and not in a way that that is an abuse of power. Whereas, even I can see at certain points in my life, I'm also, in a service field, I was in the powerful position and certain, like, I don't know, even like a client experience. I'm a healthcare provider, and I had the say on, which prescription would be given, or what, which way this woman's labor would go. I was a midwife, what we would decide to do. And I could see how it was that it wasn't me serving in his name, in many moments of my service history. It was me enjoying a bit of power. And so this was the idol that I am slaughtering in these beautiful blessed days. And that's why I related so much to your story and the message that we're we're given in the Quran of the day of judgment, but bringing that in here and now and waking up to, you know, to whatever it is that we think out there is the bad, where that might be inside of us, and slaughtering it first inside of us. I think I'll end with this. Who said it? Is it Mahatma Gandhi? First be the change that you yourself that you want to see in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Enabah, for saying this powerful phrase of truth and courageous confession. It was me enjoying a bit of power. And Lynn, this is what you shared was such a meaningful encounter that can have, can speak to every one of us. Every one of us met a moment like that or experienced this kind of conflict, but you put it, you know, what right did the spider, no, what right did you have to put the spider in a cage just because of you feeling pain? So the question that comes to my mind immediately is about pain then. Pain and retribution and pain. And you did say at the beginning that of course you believed in consequences and retribution, but then when X inflicts pain on Y, let's keep it on the human level. Maybe because with the animal or the insect level, it's a bit, you know, there's a power imbalance. So if we start with the human to human level, if X human inflicts pain and suffering on Y human, isn't it fair for Y human to seek punishment of the, you know, the offender? It's a question to Lynn.
I think yes, but what I think that's where the boundaries between what is repair, what is retribution, and what is torture.
Excellent.
And I think there's a spectrum, and I think absolutely that if you have pain that needs to be attended to, and you are asking for consequences, of course, that's the first step. But how far along that spectrum does that go? And I also think that you know, both with insects and with humans, the purposeful infliction of more pain isn't what repairs. And even with retribution, I do think there does become a spiritual difference between like retribution that is intended to somehow balance the scales, and retribution that almost does become sadistic. And I do think these are tricky things, and largely depend on the situation. But I really liked that phrase, I feel because I need, and expressing pain comes with a need. I need this pain to be attended to. I need something to happen because of this pain. This pain matters. And I think that's where, of course, consequences have to happen, but distinguishing between repair, retribution, and whatever word you want to call it, whether it's cruelty or torture or, you know, whatever might be the case, I do think there's a big difference. And then what happens once the need is proclaimed, and what will actually meet that need? What does your pain actually need?
Excellent point. Thank you for the clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And I think
Okay.
when we get confused about what our pain actually needs, we end up sometimes worshiping the thing that hurt us, whether that is power. You know, I really resonated with that story of sort of like the fracture that happens when we have pain can cause us to seek comfort or safety in the very thing that hurt us in the first place, because we think we might be more protected in the future. So I really appreciated you sharing.
Could you repeat that again, please? You said we might, if we're not careful, we might end up worshiping
what hurt us in the first place.
And why is that?
If we in the damage that's done in that pain, if we end up seeking almost like protection or comfort, or a sense of safety in the very thing that hurt us in the first place, whether that was like the might equals right, or power, or something like that we can end up sort of twisting that around within ourselves.
Assalamu alaikum. Can I say one more thing, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. So going off of what Sister Lynn is saying here, several weeks ago, studying I found myself in the story of Musa alayhi salam story, and the series with Dr. Ali. I found myself in the children of Israel. Why? The children of Israel is for me, what I get when I'm reading this in the Quran is the parable of a people who experience great injustice, yet then take up the eyeglasses of the perpetrator himself and start to wear it as they go on with their lives. They start to make their own idol of materialism, and the way that will go on, then that will oppress and hurt people. And so that's what I think is that there's a big choice when we say I feel because I need, and then we make a request. There's a big choice in what sources we are going to go for to fulfill our needs. There's a big choice in what attitude we're going to have about fulfilling those needs. In the case of being powerless, if I'm powerless and I need safety, for example, am I willing to undermine other people? Am I willing to always go after having the upper hand over other people in order to guarantee that I'm safe? And so there's the choice. And I do think that there is a rewind several steps, one going back to realizing that I'm given the feeling because I need. You're already in the framework of being a recipient who is taken care of, and whose natural response to being taken care of is gratitude. And so that softens the heart. So I think that the awareness of being given both the feeling and the need is a position of being able to request and receive the fulfillment of those needs in a place that inshallah is not turning into an idol and taking up the attitude and the behaviors and the lenses of whatever hurt or whatever perpetrator, whoever it was or whatever it was that caused the feeling in the first place.
Thank you, Sister Enabah. I've read before, but I don't think it was ever clear in my mind like it became clear now. I've read theories about how traumatized or tortured individuals sometimes respond to the source of torture, and how new attachment can arise and so forth. But you explained it well, Lynn, that we might, if we're not careful, we might end up worshiping that very source of pain. So this is a really important point Dr. Yamina, please check your inbox, your chat, your private chat, and then we're gonna have Dr. Yamina and turn on your camera, and we're gonna everybody feel free to unmute yourselves and turn your cameras on and have a discussion with Sister Lynn and Dr. Yamina.
Sorry, I didn't get it.
Which part? The part about ending up, if we're not careful, we might end up worshiping the cause of pain or the pain itself, making it an idol.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Somebody was trying to say something. I'm not sure.
It was Fauzia. Did you want to speak, Fauzia?
So anyone is welcome to ask questions or make comments about this presentation from Sister Lynn.
Jazakallah khair, Lynn. I am experiencing intense revelation that I need to really sit with through your sharing of the spider. On two different levels. So like exactly what Maha said, what spider bit me, or what we call a snake and how I grew up, that a human being, that then I completely suffocate in that jar and completely, however I am doing that suffocation, is it really an eye for an eye? Like, how am I justifying that? And is it actually suffocating because it's suffocating me? Which is the sign that perhaps, indeed, in that feeling of being hurt, in that feeling of being hurt, perhaps I end up hurting myself and focusing on that hurt in a way that does turn into some sort of very focused, not necessarily devotion, but maybe I am giving that hurt, like Dr. Yamina just said, I am owning it, like I feel hurt, and maybe that should be worship, like you're saying, of the pain comes in there because you're attributing that pain that was caused to yourself. So that I never really thought that I was doing anything wrong. So Faraz was just talking about maybe I'm wrong. I'm like, maybe this does speak to me. We talked about trapping the spider. I'm like, oh no. Oh, I better not be suffocating a spider with what I'm doing. And the fact that I am saying this is showing like perhaps I am really suffocating that spider. And then its spider analogy also speaks to me because what areas of my pain am I also putting in a jar, locking it up in a jar, and it's just sitting there in a jar that can't breathe, and then I find myself like I can't breathe. So what feelings am I locking up in jars like a little spider because they hurt me, and then not giving them space to breathe, aka communicate the message that they were meant to send? So on two different levels, I am really, and when you said the day of judgment, like the spider will speak, like how, oh my God, that just shook me to some serious Allahu Akbar reality of I really need to sit with this because it really humbles me. I feel extremely humbled.
It's already speaking through its way of being and stopped being active. Like on the day of judgment, we will be told when even our skins will speak against us, or when a human being will say, how come you speak? Will be told that they will say, أنطقنا الله الذي أنطق كل شيء. The God who makes everything speak is making us speak. Everything is speaking, but who is listening?
Thank you so much, Sister Lynn, for sharing this story that will get us thinking And it is so relevant to your work, I know, with the cage and the prisoners and the policing and the justice work. And subhanallah, so we are being presented moments and difficult questions because they mean something to us. Maybe this might mean less. Maybe somebody else who's not involved, like Dr. Yamina said, because you're sensitive to this issue. So it presented to you, but maybe somebody else might pay less attention to what's going on. You know, they might think it's just normal to get rid of the spider and kill or cage or torture. Maybe it's not as big as an issue. Subhanallah, thank you so much. So Dr. Yamina, could you please turn your camera on and
I think just let's close it here. It's quite late.
so feel free to give us your closing remarks, and if somebody if the host could kindly read us through the chat, that would be great.
That would be great, inshallah.
Zahra, could you read us through the chat, please?
Assalamu alaikum. Sure. Okay, so let me start from the top. So we have a lot of reactions and some quotes that people really liked. So one quote was, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I'm the one doing the mistake. I need help is a huge step in surrender. I'm made to feel this suffering. And the aha moment that I shared, when I am made to feel burdened, it is a message that I'm taking possession of what is God's. And Brother Faraz wrote, right, those appropriations burden and make me suffer. That's a message to stop and return. And Sister Enabah wrote Shahada moment, a day of awakening, which she was able to speak about and share further with us. There's a question from someone asking, can a harm done to someone be restored to us? Sister Enabah said, when we were talking about the spider is already speaking. And she asked a question that I want to sit with. How many messengers do we kill on a daily basis? We have Jazakallah khair to Lynn, thanking her for that profound sharing. And Sister Sarah said she received much revelation through the selected ambassadors. I'm assuming she meant for during today's session. And Sister Lynn said, thank you for sharing all of your stories too. They all stick with me. Thank you to Brother Faraz as well. So much food for thought. And that's it.
So Sister Lynn and Dr. Yamina, could you answer Sister Aminata's question, please? Thank you, Sister Zahra, for reading through the chat.
Yes, I'm happy to speak just my personal thoughts. I personally believe
just a second, Sister Lynn, sorry to interrupt. Dr. Yamina, could you read your private chat, please? Go ahead, Lynn.
Personally, I believe not always. I don't actually believe that there is such a thing as justice in all situations, at least from a human perspective. So for example, especially like it just a few months ago, there was a young boy, a 13-year-old boy named Adam Toledo, who in Chicago was murdered by a police officer. I personally don't believe that there is such a thing as justice in that situation. What can be restored? The thing that was lost, the soul that was lost, rests only with Allah. And so justice ultimately rests only with Allah, because that type of harm has passed beyond sort of the veil of any sort of human ability to restore. What I believe in that situation is possible is not justice. There's only some form of accountability, some sort of truth, some sort of, holding accountable, some sort of consequence. But I actually don't believe that's beyond our jurisdiction. That level of justice rests only with God. And I think some types of harm are that. And I do believe that that's part of that, that spectrum of repair and retribution and inflicting suffering is like, we as humans can only take on so much of that, and the full arc of justice and the full arc of restoration rests only with God. And that's difficult, I think, sometimes to recognize. I think we don't always know sort of the boundaries of some of that, but that's personally my answer to that question is of can a harm done to someone be restored? In many cases, yes, but sometimes I do believe that it is beyond us and very important to recognize that the goal is then something different. The goal might be accountability instead of justice.
Accountability instead of justice. Sometimes the goal might be different from direct justice. Does this answer your question, Sister Aminata?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Inshallah, we continue tomorrow with more discussions. Thank you, Professor Faraz, for your presentation, and Sister Lynn, as always, with your touching encounters and moments. Dr. Yamina will have time tomorrow, inshallah, to speak about today's topic, and tomorrow's topic will have more time dedicated. So may I ask Dr. Ziba to please read Al-Fatiha as we close out.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen.
Ameen. Dr. Sarah, could you kindly say the Shahada as we all repeat the Shahada in our hearts and renew our understanding and the commitment with La ilaha?
I bear witness that there is no source of existence of anything that I experience except Allah, the source of all existence. And I bear witness that Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is his worshipper and messenger. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah.
Ameen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad abduhu wa rasuluh.
Sister Maha, today's chat, I was logged out in between. So if Zara can save it and send it to you, it would be great, inshallah. I don't have the whole chat because I was logged out in between.
Could you, Zahra, please?
Sure, inshallah. Yes, I'll do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Fi amanillah. See you tomorrow at 6 discussions, inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.